Well, hey. All right. So this is the first video of my YouTube channel. And with this, we're going to talk about everything sports, culture, entertainment. But it's only fitting because the NBA finals are happening right now. In a sense, I'm behind 2 games talking about it on this channel, but game 2 just happened. So that's what we're going to talk about. And we're just going to dive deep into what I think is actually going on. And that could be a number of things. So let's get into it.
All year, Denver has been complaining about not getting in respect. And here in the finals, they are the heavy favorite. So are you guys a little upset that you're not getting the respect that you deserve?
I speak for my whole team when I say we don't give a damn. We just want to get 4 wins. We don't give a damn about none of the other stuff.
That's been a consistent message from everybody, right? That you just don't really care what all of us are saying about it.
Yeah, we don't care. 4 wins, that's all that matters.
Well,
yes, the series is tied 1-1. And I guess if you're looking at it through a lens of how great the Denver Nuggets are, which you have to start there. The Denver Nuggets are an insane team. Like, what we are seeing from them, win or lose, the statement stands that they will be a contentious Western Conference team for quite some time. Just their pieces. You know, you have a 2-time MVP in Nikola Jokic, and then you have Jamal Murray, who is finally having a healthy season where we're seeing how great he was prior to those injuries and how he pretty much is back. He's good to go. You got Michael Porter Jr. You still got some young pieces there that are learning. Aaron Gordon is figuring things out. And then, again, you have your bench. They will be fine for years to come. That in itself is a statement that needs no real explanation when you're looking at it. That does not mean that they still cannot lose the NBA Finals. That doesn't negate that. Anyone can lose, right, if you are not locked in. And what we're seeing in this NBA Finals, game 1, you saw that the Denver Nuggets just took the momentum and they kept it. And that was a game where Jamal Murray went off. He offensively was just hitting. That was a game where Joker wasn't, I guess you could say, not as imposing his will offensively, even though if you look at the box score, he still had like 29 points, right? But when it comes to the NBA Finals and really the playoffs, the box score isn't telling you the whole picture of what you're actually seeing in the game at that time and how timely baskets are. You see someone had 5 points, but then you realize, like, wait, they gave 5 points at a really pivotal moment of the game. And that's what I feel like we saw a lot of in game 2. I expected Spo to make his adjustments, and he did. People got to give the Miami Heat a lot of credit for defensively how they are choosing to handle the Denver Nuggets. I'm not saying stop them, but handle them. In terms of they have went ahead and made the decision that, yes, Joker is going to do what he does. He is a superstar, arguably the best player in the NBA right now. You're not going to stop him. That whole make him a passer or a scorer, you're not going to stop him, period. It's all part of his game. Like, it is what it is, right? You got to be able to live with him having a game like he did in game 2, which was 41 points. Like, that's going to happen, right? The goal is, how do you stop everyone else? And what you saw the Miami Heat do really well, very, very well. And I think this is going to continue as adjustments are made, right? Because both teams are going to counter what the other one does. They chose to be more strategic on how they double Joker. Not overreacting to how great he is, but saying, let's pick and choose our spots. If we are going to double him here, let's make sure we have enough recovery to defend the others of this thing. Joker is the guy, but is he the guy that makes that team run on how they win games? That's where you start to wonder, if we can limit Jamal Murray offensively, if we could take his rhythm, is that how we win a game? If we stop Michael Porter Jr. from being able to give them that momentum with his threes, does that stop the game? If we really have to force Aaron Gordon not to just have his will at the basket, but actually have to make decisions possibly in the post or up top, do we win the game that way? That's what you saw in game 2 with the Miami Heat. They made the decision. Everyone else must beat us. We will live with Joker, but can the rest of you beat us? A lot of people don't want to give Bam Adebayo a lot of credit, but defensively, he is literally doing, I think, the best job we've seen thus far in the playoffs in defending Joker. Again, you're not going to stop him. But at certain points of the game, you could tell Joker had to think about certain things. Doesn't negate that he's amazing, right? But when you look at what Bam is doing, you're like, this is actually pretty impressive. He's putting a body on him, at least making it tough on him. You're not going to stop him, but at least you're making it challenging. That's what you want. And then I said after game 1, for the Miami Heat to be successful, Bam Adebayo offensively has to be able to produce big numbers. That is a hard task to ask someone, hey, we need you to play over 40 minutes, defend the 2-time MVP. Oh, yeah, and we need you to be able to attack the basket and almost pretty much give us 20. Can you do that? That's a very tall, challenging task to ask of anyone. And I think in game 2, you really see that Bam has accepted the challenge. You know, we're going to look at some box scores because that's interesting in the terms of how the game went. So Bam had 21 points. That in itself is impressive simply because of how the defensive task is going to take so much out of him, and Spo is asking him to play over 40 minutes. That's what he gave them. Then when I say you look at Jimmy Butler, that's another conversation because Jimmy has struggled. I always believe that Jimmy struggles with making the decision on being aggressive or trying to get his teammates involved. I feel like because this is the NBA Finals, I truly believe he understands how important it is for everyone else to get going. Yes. But at times, does it come at the risk of him struggling? Absolutely. In game 2, he struggled. He wasn't offensively there. But then in the fourth quarter, this is why I say the box score says pieces of the story, not the whole story. You look at the box score and you're like, okay, Jimmy had 21. He shot 7 for 19. 2 for 5 from 3, right? I guess if you're looking at that, you're like, that's not that impressive. He didn't play really well quarters 1 through 3. But the fourth quarter, Jimmy is good at timely buckets. You know, he shoots a 3 in the fourth quarter when you feel like the play is collapsing, and that's the 3, that's the momentum shift. That's what Jimmy Butler's really good at. He understands when it's time for him to take over, and then it's on go. If you replay some of that game 2 in the fourth quarter, he has a big 3-point play when he gets the and 1. And then he has a corner 3 that changes a lot. Momentum, right? Then you look at Gabe Vincent, 23 points. He truly he's become one of the top guys for the Miami Heat. His defensive presence is there. He's willing to play on-ball defense, which is really complicated to do at times, and try to do it for the entirety of the game. He does struggle sometimes in getting in foul trouble, but then offensively, he gives you the ability to get to the rim, but he's a shooter. A consistent shooter, might I add. So that's a big piece to this. Max Strus, 14 points. You can't ask for better than that when he struggled in game 1. For Gabe Vincent and Max Strus, game 2 was big for them to get back into the rhythm because they struggled so bad in game 1 where you're like, game 2, you got to find your place in this finals or we will lose this series. And for them to make the adjustments to get them going early, you saw Max Strus wanting to shoot the ball early to get that momentum going because they understand there's certain teams you just can't go down 2-0 on, and the Denver Nuggets is one of that teams. So for them to come out and make that decision, Gabe Vincent and Max Strus, we're going to impose our will. I thought Kevin Love being in the starting lineup was a big decision that worked out. I don't think Spo is putting Kevin Love out there to gain points. It's for experience. It's for length on the floor, for more bodies to cover more space because in the terms of height, they are a smaller team compared to the Denver Nuggets. You put somebody else out there who defensively has an IQ to understand switches, knows where he needs to be, but it also gives you length. And he can knock down a 3 here and there for you. That plays a big part. But this is the thing, too. Duncan Robinson. Some people say unsung heroes. Duncan Robinson was an unsung hero because did he struggle in the first few quarters? Yes. But in the fourth quarter, what does he give them? 10 straight points. Big three-pointers, getting to the basket, affecting transition and cuts, making them have to pay attention around that perimeter because he's running off these screens. That's a big thing. That's why I say the box score, you see 10 points, and you're like, 10 points, that's not that great. But then you're like, wait, he gave them 10 points in the fourth quarter that changed the momentum, that gave it all to the Heat to say, let's go ahead and win this game. That's big. That's what is the game changer for the Miami Heat. When you have a great coach, as Eric Spoelstra is, who has won championships, who has been there, it's a difference because he's going to make adjustments knowing that it has to come by game basis, but all that you really needed to do in these first two games is still one. I've been saying that from the jump. All the Miami Heat need to do is still one game out of this two. You don't have to put this pressure on you to win game 1 and 2 at Denver. That's just hard, right? Emotions are high. Game 1 is still a filler game. You got to figure out how this team is even going to react to you, how this is going to go. But for them to steal game 2, that's big because you got to split one. You just need one to give you this confidence that, all right, let's get home. Let's get home. And if we only win one here, worst case scenario, we're going to have a tie series. Let's deal with that. That's worst case scenario. Because I do believe that the Miami Heat will win one. They might win both at home, but I give them enough credit in what I've seen from them that they will win at least one out of these two that they're about to have at home for game 3 and 4. That's all you need, right? When we're talking about the Denver Nuggets, that's where things have to become a different conversation for them because if people paid attention during the season, Coach Mike Malone has always preached effort to them. That has actually been a concern of his from the beginning of a lot of this playoffs where they would be up by 20, 30 and take their foot off the gas. And if you kind of go back and look at certain clips, people would joke like, man, Mike Malone's just really intense. But Coach Malone understands that a minute of lapse of focus or aggressiveness in the playoffs, especially the finals, we will lose a game. That is what you saw in game 2. And he spoke about it in the post game. The fact that he's having to preach effort in the finals is a cause of concern. There should not be a conversation of effort. There should not be a conversation of, are you focused? Are you locked in? It's the finals. This is why he would preach that during the season when they would be up by 20, 30, because I always say in the NBA, I think it's very hard to maintain such big leads unless you are a hyper-focused team. Because it just ends up where the momentum shifts and you start playing really slow. And that's what you see in the Denver Nuggets at times. They'll be up and you're like, man, they've had control of this entire game, and then you lose it. They had control of this entire game too until the fourth quarter, where you start to see, they're taking their foot off the gas. Now it's effort. Now it's focus. Which team can stay focused for longer? Who's going to give more effort longer? You look at the box score and you see Joker, 41 points. 4 assists, 11 rebounds. That's a great game for him. But then you start to see where the Miami Heat's defense came into play with the others. Aaron Gordon had 12 points. Okay, let's live with that, right? Last game, he gave them 12 points right in the first quarter. That was an issue. He was their spark. But you're saying he only had 12 points for the whole game this time? Okay, we limited a few things. Then you got Michael Porter Jr. This is the asterisk for them. Because even Joker said he thought that Michael Porter Jr. had made 7 threes. That's how you felt in the game. With the Denver Nuggets and the Miami Heat, even game 1 and 2, it makes you feel like the Miami Heat are getting beat by more than they actually are. And then you're like, wait, they're really in this game. Game 2, I felt that really the entire game. I was like, man, it just seems like they're getting beat by more, but they're not. They're still in this. Michael Porter Jr. shot 2 for 8, 1 from 6 from the field, 5 points. That's a big difference. That's a huge difference when you're looking at the construct of their offense and what his role is. That's big. Jamal Murray, 18 points, 7 for 15 from the field, 3 from 8 from 3. You could live with that. You could live with 18. You have to make the decision that who you're going to limit out of these two stars is going to have to be Jamal Murray. If you're telling me Joker's going to give you 30 and Jamal Murray's going to give you 25, 30, you're in trouble. it's going to be hard to win a game. For the Miami Heat to say we're going to make the executive decision to really take head on Jamal Murray. Can we stop his momentum? Can we stop his rhythm? Can we make these shots tough for him? Let Joker have his 41. But if he's having 18 and we're walking out with a win after Joker gives us 41, you could pat yourself on the back. People didn't like when people were like, well, the Heat lost, but I feel like they're still in a good, position. And then you look at game 2 and you're like, wait, they kind of are in a good position where they are figuring out as it go. Again, it's a game-by-game basis. It's NBA Finals. Caldwell Pope gave them 6 points. That is also a problem because he had foul trouble a lot. Some bad timely fouls at the three-point line. Just not being disciplined in defense where it kind of stops some of the Nuggets' momentum. You look at Green 9, Bruce Brown 11. Christian Brown, to me, is someone that is a sleeper for the Denver Nuggets. I think game 2, he earned more minutes. I think he can be trusted because he was a defensive spark for them. And offensively, yes, he had 6 points. But if you're watching the game, he runs in transition. He makes the right pass. He's not forcing it. And he cuts to the basket, which either frees up everyone else at the perimeter, but it forces the defense to have to follow him because he's moving. He's moving. It's ball movement. It's player movement. But defensively, he's active. I do think Coach Malone is going to give him more minutes in game 3 because he proved that he could be trusted. And he struggled a lot offensively in this playoffs. But you earn minutes by your defensive presence, getting a steal, making it hard, then cutting to the basket and making sure you're hitting the open man. He does that really well for a rookie. Do I think the Denver Nuggets are in trouble? No. Do I think the Miami Heat are in trouble? Honestly, no. I think the pressure is back on the Nuggets. When you hype up so much of what it was that the Denver Nuggets are, which is a reality that they are an amazing team. They are more talented than the Miami Heat. If you ask me, are they the favorites to win? Yeah, because you're looking at them play and you're like, man, this is a consistently really good team. But then you start to see games like game 2 and you're like, wait, the Miami Heat are not bad. Like, that's what I think people fail to realize with the Miami Heat, which is something that everyone has to acknowledge. Out of both of these teams, one team has way more experience than the other, and that's the Miami Heat. You have guys on that roster who have won a championship. Kyle Lowry has won a championship. UD has won championships. You got Kevin Love has won a championship. You have guys from the bubble that were on that Miami Heat team who have experienced a finals and the loss of a finals. You're dealing with a Miami Heat team that is not naive to the moment or oblivious to the moment. A lot of them have been in that spot, have lost or won. That is what is on their side compared to the Nuggets experience. You have Coach Eric Spoelstra, who has won championships, who's been in finals, who understands what it takes to coach. And Coach Mike Malone is an amazing coach for the Denver Nuggets. But a lot of times it does come down to experience, right? And Coach Mike Malone is very experienced as a coach by far. To me, he's a championship coach in my mind, at the end of the day. But you look at it and you're like, wait, the Miami Heat are going to be able to at least put up a fight because of experience, because of their effort, because that they are willing to know their role. Kyle Lowry spoke about that after the game. We all know our role. There are no question marks to what is required from anyone who's going to step out there. We know what this is and what it ain't. What is your strength and what is my weakness? The weaknesses for the Miami Heat is that they are a smaller team. I do think that going forward, you got to limit the Cody Zeller minutes. I understand that he brings more length to the floor, but unless he's going to give you valuable defensive minutes, not offensive minutes, defensive minutes, he becomes a liability in it all. He was really struggling out there in game 2 for real. Like a lot of silly fouls, just not being able to stay in front or at least put a real body. It just was bad, right? Unless he's going to give you solid minutes, I don't think it's worth really putting him out there. I'd rather put K-Love out there. If we're really going to do things to give breathers to Bam when it comes to like having to play in those Joker minutes, I would think twice about Zeller for right now. Unless he gives you a crazy game in game 3, then I'm proven wrong. But I would think, because those Cody Zeller minutes were not good for the Miami Heat. It was actually pretty bad. Like, that's something to be talked about. But again, I get it. You need length, you need height on the floor, but I don't know. Then they say that there was a possibility for Tyler Hero to play in Game 3. He is no longer going to be playing because I think the report came out that he just wasn't cleared. There's still some issues. I thought it was a really, really optimistic timetable they were trying to give him for the finals anyway, because that's a lot to throw somebody out there. I get they're all professionals, but that's a lot. That's a lot to be like, go out there after, pretty much breaking your hand. So that's going to be interesting how that kind of plays out, because I get it. They want more scoring on the floor, but I don't think it's at the risk of forcing him to be out there and he's not even fully ready to go. So I think them saying that he wasn't cleared was for good reasons. They obviously saw things. There's probably still some resistance in that hand in terms of probably how he's landing, how he's falling. Does he feel comfortable with it? I've seen the clips of him shooting. He seems like, the motion's there, everything's good, but I'm sure it's other things regarding that hand in terms of dribbling, again, landing, how are you attacking the rim, things like that nature that are a cause of concern when you break a hand, I would expect. For the Denver Nuggets, I just think, if they played their game, they could win in Miami. That's not crazy, right? I don't think that's the anomaly in this. Can the Denver Nuggets play and win in Miami? They could play and win in Miami. I think the question more so is, how do you stop the Miami Heat from feeding off their momentum and rhythm when they're playing in Miami? The same thing can be said about the Denver Nuggets when they play in Denver. They're a great home team. The same is said about the Miami Heat. They're a really great home team. How do you limit them? How do you make it harder on them? How do you stop their shooters from getting in rhythm? Those are things that I wonder what Coach Malone will do in terms of that. Do you switch everything? Which I don't think you really have to switch everything when it comes to the Miami Heat. But Duncan Robinson finding his rhythm in Game 2 makes me believe that in Game 3, they're really going to try to ride that more, which is a lot of player movement in him because you're running in and out of screens. Do you trust that Caldwell Pope cannot get into foul trouble running in and out of screens? Can you trust that if you switch with Aaron Gordon there down low that he's not going to foul Jimmy or whoever that next person is? Can you trust that? Those are questions. With Jamal Murray, will he be able to keep making these consistent tough shots and ride that as well? So many questions, right, for the Denver Nuggets in terms of defense and effort and focus. Can you stay locked in for a whole 4 quarters against this Miami Heat team who has a lot of effort, a lot of heart, and a lot of experience? Those are questions, right? For the Miami Heat defensively, I do think that we're going to see more of that Bam Jimmy switch. I think it works for them to have Jimmy on Jamal Murray and then having Bam on Joker. And if it comes into a pick and roll situation, they are better switching that. I know that sounds crazy because Jimmy is obviously very much extremely undersized to Joker, but because Joker's ability of passing the ball really is that pick and roll that him and Jamal got really is a great 2-man game because he doesn't hesitate to give it back to Jamal. But it makes sense because Bam is able and quick enough to stick with Jamal until they have to switch again, right? I wonder will we see more of that in Game 3 because I think that does make sense. Some of Game 2, they were switching and they put Gabe Vincent in the blender having to switch on Joker. And I really felt bad for him because that is a physical toll it would take on any person to have to be back down from Joker. That is a lot. I could only imagine. And you kind of saw in Game 2, they would do the switch, which was a mismatch really for the Denver Nuggets and to their advantage. And most of the time, Joker scored it on Vincent. So I wonder, is that a point of emphasis for the Miami Heat going forward in Game 3 where you try not to let that happen? And Gabe Vincent gave great effort to it. It's not like he was giving up. He's doing the best he can. There's only so much you could do, right? But I wonder, is it better that way? That if you're going to allow that whole pick and roll situation happen, that 2-man game happen, do you just always keep Jimmy on Jamal Murray and always keep Bam on Joker? So that way, if you do switch, I think I would put a little bit more trust in Jimmy guarding Joker. I'm trying to think it out the more I say it because that still isn't ideal either. That's not like the answer, right? That's not the answer to stopping Joker, but I wonder for the Miami Heat, is that the best thing in terms of just trying to slow down that two-man game and trust that everyone else can guard their mans in that situation when you're switching off that pick and roll with Jamal Murray and Joker. It's going to be interesting to see. They did a lot of it kind of in game 2 glimpses, and I feel like it worked pretty well to sustain certain scoring consistencies between the Denver Nuggets. But I wonder what will happen as you're going into game 3. Like, do you put Kevin Love in those switches eventually? Like, do you allow him to guard Joker at some point? I don't know. It's something to think about. Again, I think Bam is doing the best job we've seen thus far in this finals, really guarding Joker. Anthony Davis showed glimpses of trying to slow Joker down, but I think Bam is doing the most active effort in terms of trying to force Joker to have to get the ball out of that box, try to make him move a little bit more, and he's able to. But again, it's Joker. You're going to have to live with it. Again, he had 41 points. So that's what I'm trying to understand more about game 3. That's what I'm excited to see, defensive adjustments from Coach Malone and Coach Spo. And it's going to be interesting. I don't have a prediction of who I think is going to win game 3 because this finals to me is really high-level basketball. People feel like this finals is boring. If you're really watching it, it really is some great basketball being played, some really smart basketball being played. Like, that was another thing. Some people didn't like that Coach Malone didn't call a timeout towards the last seconds of the game. I don't think a timeout is technically necessary, I guess, in the sense, because I feel like they were going off of, you want a quick shot. Don't let the defense get set. Because, again, the Miami Heat are a good defensive team. You don't want them to get set. So you go fast. I do think maybe they expected that they would foul. So they would either, go shoot free throws or whatever the case may be to where they didn't force a 3 and they were in a better situation. I mean, the sidestep 3 from Jamal Murray is one that he shot a ton of times. He's made it a ton of times. I don't think that was a bad shot. You could have got probably a better quality shot with an out-of-timeout play, but I think you could live with that, right? Because if he makes it, then we're speaking of him as a legend and how they're up 2-0. So just how the cookie crumbles if the ball goes in or not. But I don't think it was that crazy that he didn't. Do I think that Coach Malone is probably going to start using his timeouts going forward if they're in that situation again? Absolutely. You see that and you're like, okay, I could have called a timeout with plenty of time to really get a good play. Even if it's not Jamal hitting the 3, you could even call a play for Joker. Could have been an and one. So many different things, right? So many different sequences that could have happened. But the Heat stole game 2, and now they're heading back to Miami with the series tied 1-1. That's crazy when you think about it, because everyone said they would get swept. And now, I don't know. Could be a gentleman's sweep. Maybe the Denver Nuggets don't lose a game after this, or the Miami Heat end up winning game 3, and they're up 2-1. And the craziest things could happen, because like I said, this finals is not boring. Everyone feels like it is, but it's not. It's really a great finals when you're looking at it through the lens of just pure basketball IQ and how it's like these are two fundamentally sound teams and very well coached offensively and defensively. You're not going to see too many silly things. They may happen, but they don't always happen. And that's what I think is great about this. I do think the marketing could have been better for this finals. I'm so used to how the finals used to be, like the trophy in the middle, the decal in the middle of the court, the scoreboard had the finals everywhere. Like, you would see that finals trophy everywhere during the game where like you knew it was the finals. I remember when the patches, like the finals patches, were like right there. Like, now they're like on the back, and it's not the same. It's not, the product is not the same. So it's going to be interesting. I'm ready for game 3 to see if Miami can just play off of their at-home energy and end up being up 2-1. That's the best situation to be in with the Denver Nuggets. Or will the Denver Nuggets go and steal game 3 back immediately to regain home court? Anything can happen. So, all right. So I finally did it. I started a YouTube. A lot of you follow me on TikTok, and it's always fun, but again, it's a short time. They took away the 10-minute feature on TikTok, so I only have 3 minutes. And some of you have said that I talk too long. Some have said, let's talk more about it. So I'm giving you the option now. YouTube. Come chit chat, like, comment, subscribe, as they all say in their YouTube promos. do all that. Let's debate. Let's talk about it in deeper context. So I would love to do that with you guys. So make sure you do that with me because I want to do that with you. And we're going to be trying to do this every week. Every week. So that means I'll be seeing you guys next week. Possibly might see you again this week if game 3 is really just giving that we need to talk about it. But nevertheless, if you don't hear from me for game 3, the next time I drop, we will be talking about game 3 and 4. So I'll be seeing you guys.